The Big Five American sports are all scheduled in November for the first time since November 2020, and we want to celebrate by slashing the cost of all daily packages by 50%, including 5% best bets. Starting Tuesday, November 1st through Sunday, November 7th, $25 daily packages are priced at $12.50, and $35 5% best bets are priced at $17.50. But even better, this is the perfect time to take advantage of WagerTalk's one-day all access. Lock in the handicapper of your choice for one full day for only $39, including when they have a 5% top play that normally sells for $35. But during our 50% slash promotion, you get a one-day all access for only $19.50. This special is valid through Sunday, November 7th, so save the whole week long.
All right, guys, welcome in. Happy Tuesday here. Welcome to November. Wow, November the 2nd, week 10 of the college football season. The return of MACtion tonight. Always a great time of year. Love it. But we do have 4 games we want to break down for you that will take place. One tonight and a few more happening this weekend here. And we're going to do it with 3 of our favorites, 3 of the very best, 3 of the guys that, when it comes to profiting at WagerTalk.com, 3 of the absolute best. Steve Merril, Bryan Leonard, and Dave Cokin in the house with us here today. And Steve, happy Election Day, my friend. I know you got a little something to roll in there for the viewer and a flag. That's great. Just don't stand up because you scared the shit out of Cokin and I last time you did that. So don't do that again. But go ahead and tell us what's going on at WagerTalk right now and what do we got going on?
I was trying to find it. I got the voting. I do have the voting stickish. I tried to find this for the baseball show. I voted, and then, of course, the kids voted with me. So we got like 4 votes in for the price of 1. We brought the future voters as well, which is always the way to do it because you vote early and often in the Merril household. Just kidding, of course. No legal action, please. But yeah, we have a great special today. Election 39. You get 3 days for the price of 1. Election 39. Election 39 gets you the next 3 days and nights. All sports, every play, every day. 3 days for the price of 1. Just $39. And look, 12-4, 75% number 1 ranked start in the NBA. I've got a strong NBA best bet tonight on Tuesday. Game 6 World Series over-under. I was number 1 this year in MLB totals at WagerTalk.com. So get my number 1 NBA, number 1 MLB totals tonight, or get the next 3 days and nights with Election 39. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
All right, love it. There you go, guys. Head over to WagerTalk.com. While you're there, make sure you check out Bryan Leonard. And Bryan, a lot going on for you, right? We still don't have a World Series champ just yet, but that looks like that might take care of itself here in the next day or so. NHL fully underway with you as well. What's going on, Bryan?
Yeah, a little everything going on right now, getting ready for college basketball only 7 days away. So I don't know about the rest of the guys, but when you've got 350 teams to cover in college basketball, the preparation during this week and this month has actually been really hyped up, and I'm sure a lot of us are all in that situation where it's tough to get any free time with college basketball. But once everything gets rolling here, it'll be nightly basketball, hockey, baseball's about to end, but football and all. The MACtion going on right now in the middle of the week. So it is. You mentioned it coming in. It's an exciting time.
It's our favorite time, guys. Make sure you head over to WagerTalk.com. Visit Bryan Leonard's page, and, of course, visit Dave Cokin's page. Why? Well, we said the NHL, it is underway, and once again, Dave continuing to be very profitable in the NHL, guys. Number 1 all-time, by the way, at WagerTalk in hockey profits, already off to a 10-3 start. And I understand, Dave, you are the $2 handicapper at WagerTalk, which means you got an NHL play for us tonight.
Yeah, I have 1 game tonight. Big schedule, but I only landed on 1 game. But I do like it. Things are going well in the NHL as they usually do. And you can get the game for $2 because I'm the $2 handicapper this week. So just go to my homepage, which is wt.buzz/DC, and pick up the game. We've also got some college football stuff up. And looking forward to talking about the games today.
All right, let's do it, guys. MACtion is back, so why don't we start there? Game number 1 up today. Let's take a look, Robert. Look at that. Toledo taking on Eastern Michigan here tonight. Toledo opens up as an 8-point favorite, a total of 52. And we just saw Eastern Michigan blow out Bowling Green. That was on the road, scored a whole bunch of points there. And Toledo, what do we do with them as they just took down Western Michigan? It's an interesting matchup, Steve. It's also a Tuesday night matchup, which is always intriguing. How are you looking at this game? Side, total?
Yeah, we got 10 MAC teams playing tonight on Tuesday, and tomorrow night on Wednesday we have a couple games as well. So there's 5 MAC games the next 2 nights. And I love how they do this, not only from a betting perspective, because it gives us extra games to wager on during the week, but I've always thought it's such a brilliant idea. If you're a mid-major conference, why wouldn't you play all your games, all season long for that matter, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays? Sunbelt does it as well. So some MAC action. Of course, they were the first small conference to go on the board. I know Brian Leonard remembers because I can still hear him cheering when they went on the board in the late 90s, because he and I both took advantage of it for several years. I do think the lines have gotten a little sharper in recent decades, as they often do, but you can still find your spots here. This is a game tonight I'm not using for my clients. Not going to be involved in this one with Eastern Michigan, Toledo. Toledo was supposed to be the class of this conference. In fact, I remember back on WagerTalk today when the season began, we had Ralph Michaels on actually this summer before the season began, and he gave out a futures play over 8.5 wins for Toledo, and I thought it made a ton of sense because we looked over their schedule. It looked very manageable, but they have underachieved this year, just 4-4 straight up. They got 4 games left, so they're not going to get to that 8.5. But I still think they're the class, and the fact they have lost 2 of their last 3, I'm leaning that way in this game, even though Eastern Michigan is the 5-3 better record team. They're getting more than a touchdown. This line opened 8. It's now up to 9. Total opened 52. It's now up to 54. The big thing in this game, obviously, will be slowing down Eastern Michigan's passing attack because they do not run the ball all that effectively. Toledo's actually been pretty good defending the pass this year. Where they have struggled is throwing the ball. Michigan, very weak run defense. So I think the matchup is favorable for Toledo to get back on track tonight.
Yeah, Brian, it's interesting with Toledo. Their defense, pretty darn good, I believe. Plus 10 on the takeaway this year. 14 turnovers for this team. How are you looking at this game tonight?
Yeah, Steve talked about how when they got on the main board, they were on the added board for a long time, which games were circled, limited betting. I don't know about Steve, but at that time, $500 was a decent sized bet for me. So I was able to take advantage of that. And it kept away all of the guys who bet a lot of money, which was why it was easy to beat. Well, once they put it on the regular board, it took away that advantage. And Steve's right. It's a lot harder to win in the MAC now than it was years ago. But I think we may be able to pull a winner here. And I think you hit on it. Toledo on the season has yet to lose a turnover battle in any game. They're up, 8, 10? They're up plus 11 turnovers on the season, and yet they're 4-4 against the spread. This has been a team who's been a disappointment. There's been talk possibly of a coaching change. Toledo halfway through the season, they just beaten UMass. Everybody beats UMass. In the next 2 games, they play Northern Illinois at home, and they lose outright as a 13-point favorite. Very next week, they go to Central Michigan, lose outright in overtime as a 5-point favorite. At that point, I'm thinking, okay, Toledo comes into the season thinking they're the class of this conference. That's going to be it for them. And then they play Western Michigan, the big rivalry, and they beat Western Michigan 34-15 as 1.5-point underdog. But they were outgained yards per play 5.8 to 4.9. So somewhat of a fluky win, but a win nonetheless. So they go into the bye, both teams coming out of their bye. And it's a situation for myself where I think Toledo comes out thinking they're back on track, and I'm not so sure. Eastern Michigan right here, catching the 9 points, 8-9 points, is the way I would look at this game. This is a team, a very good coach, very well coached team, and Toledo's a team that just something wrong with them this year. They haven't played well. They haven't come out and really crushed anybody other than UMass, one of the 4 worst teams in college football, than Norfolk State in a FCS game. So they have yet to prove it to me that they can be trusted in this price range. So I prefer the Eastern Michigan side.
All right, leaning towards the Eastern Michigan side there. Dave, Toledo, I believe 3 of their 4 losses by 3 or less. So they've been close. So do you trust them laying this kind of number?
No, and I don't like the spot for them either. I was on Toledo in their last game, against Western Michigan. I thought that was a big game for Toledo because of the way they'd lost to Western Michigan the prior year. It was just an incredible finish to that game. And Toledo played a strong game against the Broncos. Their defense was really good in that game. And the Toledo defense is very good by MAC standards. But the Toledo offense has been sluggish all season. The quarterback's been inconsistent, we'll say. That's a nice way of saying he's been lousy. And this is a very difficult team to lay points with because the offense is so sluggish. Eastern Michigan also kind of has the profile of a team that could hang around against the spread. They don't run the ball. Okay, they have no running game, but they can throw. And teams that throw the ball are always live for backdoor covers late, especially in a game against a Toledo team that really just doesn't figure to move up and down the field offensively. It is a potential letdown spot of sorts for Toledo because they are coming off the big rivalry win. Not sure they'll be all that fired up to play Eastern Michigan. I think it's going to be an entertaining game and probably pretty close. So I would look, it's not on my card, but I do lean Eastern Michigan plus the points.
All right. Also leaning Eastern Michigan and the points, guys. MACtion football back here tonight over the next couple of days. It should be fun, and so should this game coming up on Saturday, 11:30. Let's see it, Robert. Army taking on Air Force in this one here. Opens up as Air Force laying a field goal here. Total 38.5, which is interesting because, remembering Army in that Wake Forest game just a couple of weeks ago, Brian, you're going 38.5. They can do that themselves here, apparently, that offense of theirs. But different animal defensively here for Air Force, or is it than Wake Forest here? How are you looking at this game?
Yeah, anytime you look at the service academies, you've got to take a look at the under, and that's what I'm looking here. It's an obvious play. Was surprised. The initial money was going on the over, looking at like 37s across the board. I believe the last 7 times they played, they've all gone under the total.
Yep.
Last 3 years, the highest scoring game they've had is 31 points. To me, it's pretty much if it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's the way this has been. Even when Air Force played Navy earlier this year, only 26 total points. So when you get these teams that play very similar type of styles and play each other every year, they know what the opposition is going to do. So points are coming in as a premium. Army started the year strong, winning the first 4 games. So they lost 3 straight. Ball State, Wisconsin, and Wake Forest. But obviously those are much better teams than the Connecticut's and the Miami, Ohio's, and Western Kentucky's they started the season with. So Army's starting to get into a tough part of the schedule, and they've actually played pretty well. They only lose to Wisconsin by 6, lose to Wake Forest by 14 in that shootout that you mentioned. And Air Force is a team that's played good ball again, one of the best coached teams in the country, always seem to be. They've only got 2 losses on the season, Utah State, San Diego State. This is a different type of game for Air Force. It'll be much different than what it's been lately, but take a look at what Air Force has done defensively on the season. Other than that game where they allowed 49 points to Utah State, they allow 14, 3, 7, 10, 14, 17, and 20. And people are looking to bet this over. I don't see it. I think this is what the typical season matchup between these 2 teams, where both teams will be fighting for field position, and both teams know what they're going to do. And it's tough to get big plays when the opposition knows what you're going to do. So I like this under. I put this out earlier in the week, and it still fits that way. I can't see any way this game goes over, even though most will look at this as a general thought and look at 37 points. I think that's crazy, especially as you mentioned the Wake Forest Army game just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that recency bias will be interesting. Another interesting part here, Dave, is Air Force loses a bit. This home field, it really isn't home field. It's at I believe, the new ballpark for the Texas Rangers is where they're playing this. So
yep.
Do you factor that into this, or is it over under 5 passes?
No, Brian pretty much explained it. Both teams know exactly what the other team's going to do. And they practice. Both teams practice against the option every day, so they know how to defend it. It was a 10-7 game last year between these teams, and I'm not saying it's going to be that low scoring, but I can't make a case for the over. It's going to be a fast-moving game, long possessions, and unless they all result in touchdowns, you'll probably see field goals in another game that's low scoring. So, look, it's really tough to bet a total that's this low. But that's the only way to bet the game as far as I'm concerned. Forget the side, because I think it's a toss-up as far as that goes. Maybe a slight edge to Air Force, but they are the favorite. And just play the under and expect another grinded-out game that takes less than 3 hours to play, and we'll see who comes out on top in the end. But I would agree with the under.
This would be the 21st Commander-in-Chief trophy. Air Force would get it. Their first one since 2016, Steve, if they win this game. So a little added motivation for the service academies. What do you think we're going to see here?
Well, you brought up a good point about it being, well, not only early kickoffs to start, folks, it's 11 a.m. Eastern, a.m. Pacific time, so a little earlier than normal, but about it being a neutral field in Arlington, Texas, Joe, because you don't have that altitude edge for Air Force, which is a little bit of an edge, and maybe not as much so when you're running the ball every play. You're not running downfield on big pass plays, but it is a neutral field. And it's funny, Bryan Leonard was on WagerTalk today with me, and he talked about this game, and he mentioned how the line, as he said earlier, was high, going higher, 37.5, 38. We do have 37 record now, and once again, I'll get in my hot tub time machine for you, Joe Raineri, and we'll go back 20 years to back when the MACtion was on the added board, and when 37 was a key number with football totals. When we all started, 37 and 41 were the key numbers. And there's probably about a 5% chance that this game lands exactly on 37 points. And we don't talk about it anymore because it's such a low total. Everything's in the 50s now, but 20-17, there's so many different combinations that get you there. And then look at the point spread side here. 2.5, a lot of threes out there. So we're talking about both the side and total sitting on key numbers, 37 and a half, 3, with Air Force being the favorite. So no matter which way you're playing this game, you want to shop around. If you like the under, you grab 37 and a half now while it's still available. If you like the over, I'd wait. I can't imagine we're going to see a 36 and a half, but it is starting to trend down that way. And the under really is the only way to play it for all the reasons Dave and Bryan pointed out. I always say when you're playing an option team, you want that bye week, the extra time to prepare. Well, both teams are coming off a bye, but of course it doesn't matter because they face the option all the time. So imagine both run defenses won't be ready to go. If you just look at them statistically this year, they both have been above average, especially Army's run defense, give up just 93 rushing yards a game. And keep in mind, they played Wisconsin a couple games ago. They held them to 20 points, missed extra points, so 3 touchdowns, but they held Wisconsin to 198 yards on 43 carries. That's actually very good for a Wisconsin team that runs the ball heavy. So Army is tested this year. And at 3 or more, you can maybe start making a case for a live dog for that reason. We'll see where this point spread settles.
All right, there you go, guys. Should be 11, like you said, a little earlier start here on Saturday. Army taking on the Air Force. We'll head over to the ACC and an interesting battle as well here, Robert. North Carolina State heading over to Tallahassee, taking on FSU, Florida State. And for those of you that had Florida State and the points last week against Clemson, I am sorry. I hope you drank enough to get over that. That was absolutely brutal. 4 o'clock Eastern time on this. NC State opens up as a field goal favorite, total of 55, Dave. And I know there are going to be some people here going, I'm never betting FSU again ever. But do you like them in this spot at home against NC State?
That was such a weird play in that game because if you watched it, I mean, the ball's around midfield after the guy catches the ball, Florida State, and it looked like he had room to maneuver. Instead, here goes the pitches backwards, and it ends up with a Clemson touchdown. Just an incredible play. We've seen it before. There have been plays like that before. Once those laterals begin, bad things usually happen. I don't know what to make of Florida State coming out of that game. They played pretty well against Clemson. NC State's a better team, though. And there's just more on the line for North Carolina State. I think it's in the number. I mean, I made the number. What did I make it? I made it about where the number is. I think I made it 4. So it's a really scant edge for North Carolina State. Florida State has started to play better football. They're They're considerably improved from where they were early in the season, but they still don't know how to win football games. And NC State does, and I think it basically comes down to that in the end. NC State finds a way to win the game. It's certainly not a game I'm even remotely considering as a selection. I think it's too tough, but I'll give you a guess, and that's all it is. I wouldn't put any stock into this. NC State,
So
as weak an opinion as it gets.
Dave, you bring up a good point. NC State seems to figure out, Steve, how to win games. They certainly did against Louisville because they were pretty much being outplayed in that game and did a great job of actually getting the win. But now they got to go on the road and take on a pissed off Florida State team, to say the least. Here, what do you think we're gonna see?
Yeah, what Dave was saying about that lateral, it turned out to be overwhelming because not only did it affect the sight of the total also, and Teddy Covers had this in his bad beat segment on Monday's show yesterday on WagerTalk today, and Clemson at 0-7 against the spread until that cover, never in doubt cover. So yeah, Clemson's just a money burner this year, and it'll be interesting to watch them as well in the ACC. But a big thing last week, the result actually was that Louisville NC State game, because that was potentially a bad spot for NC State after that tough 31-30 loss at Miami of Florida as a 4-point favorite. I don't think NC State was in the running for the playoffs, but with Clemson being down, the ACC is obviously wide open, and their only loss before that had been to Mississippi State, which wasn't a terrible loss in hindsight on the road against an SEC team. So I do think NC State was still playing for a playoff spot, and after that second loss, they knew it was over. So you always worry about teams in that situation, but they bounced back with a solid, 15-point win and cover last week against Louisville. So I think we can maybe look at them for that reason. But you look at the line here, and Florida State actually statistically, same schedule strength for the most part. They're actually slightly better offensively this year, especially when you factor in opponents played. And both teams are about 0.4 yards per play better defensively when you factor in opponents played. So on the surface, these are really two dead even teams, yet we're getting FSU as a 3-point dog. So look at that, understand why some money is starting to come in on Florida State. In fact, I have seen some books go to 2.5. The Circa in Las Vegas, I believe, is 2.5 now. Looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen, there are others that are 3 juiced minus $1.15. So if you like Florida State here early in the week on Tuesday, you might want to grab that +3 while you still can, because it does look like the line is starting to drop to 2.5 in many locations.
So NC State 6-2 on the season here, Brian. Both of those losses, by the way, coming on the road. So here they go into Tallahassee. Not exactly a friendly atmosphere. What do you think we're going to get?
I kind of feel a little bit like Dave here. This isn't going to make my card at all, but I had the line a little bit higher. I thought it would be about 4.5 here. So we are seeing some value on NC State, at least in my eyes. Florida State, yeah, I had Florida State last week, and it's a tough way to lose, but really, do they deserve the cover? I'm not so sure. They were outgained by 136 yards, 10 first downs. They had the turnover advantage. I'm not so sure, even though I had Florida State last week, that was the right side in that game. NC State's, you take a look at what the schedule looks like. They just played a home game last week against Louisville, but that's surrounded by the 2 road games at Boston College and Miami, and now they play at Florida State, and then that big game coming up against Wake Forest, a team who's just been much better than what I think just about anybody has thought so far this season. NC State's a team that the only game that they didn't break even or win the turnover battle was that game at Mississippi State, obviously an SEC school on the road. Those are tough to win. They lost the turnover battle by 3 in that game, but they still outgained Mississippi State in that contest, and they only lost by 14. So I think from what we've seen on the season, yes, I mentioned it last week, Florida State's playing a little bit better ball, but you couldn't have been more improved after losing to Jacksonville State and getting blown out by Wake Forest by 21. Well, now we see the Wake Forest is a pretty good team. So Florida State is playing better, but I still think the line's a little bit cheap here. I won't be involved myself, but if it gets down to 2.5, as Steve was just pointing out, it'd be a lean for me on the road favorite here.
All right, there you go, guys. FSU taking on NC State, battle in the ACC. Our final game, we're going to head out west for a little Pac-12 battle here. Let's check it out. USC traveling to the desert here in Week 10 to take on the Arizona State Sun Devils. I'm still trying to figure out how Arizona scored 34 points in a game. I'm also trying to figure out if the uniforms were the wrong color, Steve Merril. I don't know who Arizona State was throwing the ball to. They just decided they kept giving the ball up because 5 turnovers pretty much did them in. Arizona State at home laying a little more than a touchdown here. How much do you trust them to bounce back in this situation?
I do actually, and I was unfortunately on Arizona State last Saturday afternoon for my clients, and everyone was telling me, what a terrible, oh, you're awful. And then we went 4-0, 3-0 Saturday night, and then won the early NFL game. So perfect 4-0 after that. So, folks, that's another great barometer in sports bet is when everyone's jumping ship, it's usually a good time to get on board. But they look, 5 turnovers will make you look pretty bad and make you lose outright as a 16-point favorite. It's interesting. I went back and looked. This is Herm Edwards' 4th season. He only had 4 games last year in his 3rd season, but he's been there 4 years now at Arizona State. He's obviously a rah-rah guy. He's a guy that likes to, get his troops motivated. He's not afraid to pile it on. Arizona State under his tenure has had back-to-back losses a handful of times. They're 5-1 against the spread coming off back-to-back losses going back to when he started in 2018. It last happened last year after going 0-2. They won their last 2 games. But after those 2 losses, they played at Arizona as an 8-point favorite. Same line as this. They won 70-7. So I think it's a good bounce back spot. Arizona State should take better care of the football. They only had 4 turnovers total in their 4 prior games until this past Saturday when they had a 5-1 deficit. Meanwhile, USC, difficult team to back. Helton was fired a month ago. They rallied after that, Stanford lost and beat Washington State. They've gone 2-3 straight up, 1-4 against the spread since that rallying win. They've gone over in 3 of those 4 games. Defense is not getting it done, and their pass defense has been horrendous, giving up almost 8.5 yards per pass. Arizona State, a very good offensive team, averages almost 9 yards per pass. So I do think the turnovers stop this week. I think Arizona State gets a nice bounce back win.
How about it, Bri? You think Herm will have these guys ready to go, clean it up here a little bit at home for SC?
That was one of the bigger shockers for me last week, losing that game to Washington State. Arizona State, at least in my mind, looks to be one of the top 2-3 teams in this conference. And it really shocked me the way they played in that game. -4 in the turnovers. Just was not what you would expect out of an Arizona State team. But now I look at the line, and at least in my mind, I think it's a little bit high. I think people are expecting a huge bounce back right now. And I did also, but you've got a USC team that on the season has only been outgained in 1 game. That was against Oregon State. You take first downs. They've won the first down battle in all but 1 game. When they played at Notre Dame, they lose that by 1. So this is a team that can methodically take the ball down the field and keep the offense off the board. And Arizona State's got a pretty good scoring unit over there. So once again, will not be on my card this weekend, but I think the line's a little too high right now, even though I think Arizona State's the better team and the line's telling you that. You're catching a USC team that came out of the bye. First, they lose to Utah at home by 16. Then they go into the bye. They come out and lose to Notre Dame by 15, usually one of their bigger games on the season. And then last week against Arizona, only beating Arizona by 7 was somewhat of a shocker. They were 21.5-point favorites. So right now, nobody wants any part of USC. And usually when you're handicapping and you get a team that nobody wants any part of, that's the team that's going to cover the spread. So that's the way I feel in this game. Is I'll take USC plus the points. Not enthusiastic about it because the way they played, you can't be. But I think the line's a little bit too higher.
So what do you think we're going to get from it's tough to say with SC, Dave. I mean, we've said that now for weeks. Yeah, you just don't know what you're going to get here. Do you think they go on the road and they're proud enough to be able to take down Arizona State?
No. I'll disagree with Brian a little bit. I don't know that people are going to want USC here. I don't think they will. But I don't think they're going to want Arizona State either. There was a lot of bets on Arizona State last week. And the betting market has a tendency not to want to back a team that just took money out of Aussie the last couple of weeks for Arizona State. I think getting back home against a weak defense is a bounce back situation. But the key for me here is no Drake London. This guy's the best player. He's the best player on USC's team. He's a first-round draft choice, or at least he was. Now he suffers the injury, and I don't know what that's going to do to his draft status. But Drake London he's a great college football player. On a team that is, it's weird to say this, but on a team that's devoid of a lot of good NFL talent, London, to me, was the stick out on the Trojans team. He's a fabulous player. And for a team that's got nothing to play for anyway, if it's a team that's got something on the line, maybe you want to look at playing on them when they lose their superstar, because it's a galvanizing effect on the rest of the team. It's like, okay, let's get it together and show what we can do here. Sort out of the Dallas Cowboys with no Dak Prescott the other day. Hey, Cooper Rush is strictly a backup. Cowboys played a hell of a game. I mean, I think that really, okay, we're going to go out and show we can do it without our guy. But for a USC team that's just, it's been all negative anyway, and now they lose their best player, and they're going in to face a team that you would think is hungry to make amends for the last couple of performances, especially the quarterback. I think that favors the Sun Devils. So value, I don't think there is any particularly. I think it's lined about where it should be. But I think the situation does favor Arizona State, and the key for me is the London injury for USC. I think that's just that could be the straw that breaks the camel's back in what has already been a rough season for the Trojans.
Yeah, absolutely terrible ankle injury. That was absolutely awful. Terrible. But I will say this, USC did beat Arizona State last year by 28-27, and Arizona State 16-4 straight up in their last 20 home games. Home cooking has worked well for them. We'll see if that happens again here on Saturday as USC traveling to Arizona State. All right, guys, there you got it. 4 games, including a MACtion game here tonight. So when you put it all together, let's go around the horn here and see if there's one of these games these guys are leaning towards a little bit more than the others. And Steve Merril, with your election flag and everything else you got going on there, talk to us. Which one of these games are you leaning towards?
Yeah, I'm going to take a look at the Pac-12 game we just talked about. Quick reminder, though, election 39 gets you the next 3 days and nights for $39. That's the price of 3 days for the price of one. $39 gets you every sport, every play, every day. I'm number 1 this year in the NBA, 12-4 start. I've got an NBA best bet tonight on Tuesday, a steamroller blowout. I'm number 1 this year in MLB totals at WagerTalk.com. I've got the Game 6 over-under best bet, Astros Braves tonight. So 2 strong best bets for Tuesday night. Get them right now for half price because it's half price all week at WagerTalk.com. Or better yet, get the next 3 days and nights with election 39. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. Once again, take a look at Arizona State minus the 8.5. They lost last year to USC, but this is a revenge spot. I like it for that reason, but more so I like the fact they're off back-to-back losses. Herm Edwards now 5-1 against the spread the last 3.5 years as a head coach at Arizona State when they've lost back-to-back games. And last year it happened going into week 3, and he won 70-7 as an 8-point favorite. Now he's an 8.5-point favorite. Similar spot, good focus spot against a USC team that can't stop the pass and has been kind of just decimated by distractions all season long. Arizona State minus 8.5 late Saturday night.
Yep, 10:30 p.m. Eastern time kickoff for that one. All right, Brian, talk to us. Which one of these games might you be leaning towards?
No lean about. I definitely have an opinion on the under in that Air Force game, Air Force Army under the total. And I do want to point out, I'm here in Vegas, and I don't think there's an election here. So that's probably that's just a little local election, isn't that, Steve?
That's first Tuesday in November, national elections, but it's a 2021 is an off year, as they say. So we only have a couple gubernatorial races, and that's about it. There's betting odds out there, though, Brian, so there's elections somewhere.
Yeah, he just wanted to hold up a flag, and he's got his USA thong. It's just don't encourage him, Brian. Do not encourage him.
It's a little chilly. It's a little chilly, Joe. I didn't wear the bathing suit. I actually saw it today. I actually got the sweat jacket on, and Bryan Leonard had not been exposed. I use that term very loosely, exposed to the bathing suit before, but I know Dave Cokin was last week, and I didn't want to.
I'm going to tell you something,
Dave anymore.
Yeah, Steve, if you're wearing a USA thong, I'm moving to Honduras.
Born a thong in my life.
All right, Dave, it's all yours. By the way, $2 Tuesday, guys. Dave is the $2 Tuesday handicapper. NHL play up and ready to rock and roll right now for $2. 10-3 on the season, guys. Number one all time in profits in the NHL. Dave, which one of these games are you leaning towards?
I don't know if it'll make my card or not. I've only bet 3 games so far in college football this week. But there's a shot Arizona State might make it on. I want to see if I can get some quotes or information. I think the London injury is just devastating to USC. The team's not going well anyway, and you lose your best player. I just think it's a spot where the intensity just might not be there for them. And I would expect that given his ability to inspire with his words, I think Herm Edwards is going to have Arizona State ready to play after a very bad game last week at Washington State. So Sun Devils minus for me, my best bet here on the show.
All right, there you go, guys. I got 4 games breaking down here today. And just a quick recap here for you in case you missed it. Steve Merril likes Arizona State laying the 8.5. Brian likes the under 37 Army, Air Force, and Dave as well is leaning towards that Arizona State side against USC, laying the 8.5. Don't forget, Dave, $2 handicapper right now. WagerTalk, go get his best bet in the NHL tonight. $2 over at his page at WagerTalk. Bryan Leonard already locked and loaded here, guys, with games for this week. Head over to WagerTalk. Take advantage of that. And Steve Merril, he's got it. Apparently, he's holding an election in his own house, and he's got his flags and everything out. So he voted himself in, guys. Election 39, a 3-day all-access pass, all plays, all sports for Steve Merril. Take advantage over at WagerTalk.com. Hit that bell in the upper right-hand corner, guys. And don't forget, tomorrow we'll be back with another 4 games that we'll break down here for you at week 10 of the college football season. In the meantime, on behalf of Steve Merril and Bryan Leonard and Dave Cokin, guys, we appreciate the time. Best of luck with your plays tonight. We'll catch you tomorrow.
And they're off. Large fields and huge pari-mutuel pools result in the best opportunity to profit betting horse racing on Breeders' Cup weekend. WagerTalk's own horse racing expert, Sig, will be joined by handicapper and horse racing contest expert Sean Alvarez as they preview the entire field for Breeders' Cup weekend in the 2021 WagerTalk Breeders' Cup preview and wagering guide.